The Latin word for the month of August was augustum. Spanish looked at it and said agosto. French looked at the same word and said ooh. That is the whole word, one vowel. And French still writes 5 letters and an accent to spell it. Do it again. Latin, vitam, life. Spanish, vida. French, vie. Latin, securum, safe. Spanish, seguro. French, sûr. Every time, Spanish keeps the shape of the Latin word and French keeps only the edges. So the joke writes itself. French is Spanish with the middle deleted. And the joke is wrong in one important way, right in a much more interesting way, and it hides the single most useful thing a Spanish speaker can know about French. First, the correction because it matters. French did not come from Spanish. They are siblings, not parent and child. Both are Latin, grown up in different provinces of the same empire. Nobody deleted anything from Spanish. What happened is that one sibling wore the words down much further than the other. So today, the 3 machines that did the wearing down, the moment the missing letters turned out not to be missing at all. The silent letters that were never real in the first place. And what the research actually says about which of these 2 languages is harder, because it is not the one you think. Part 1. The middle fell out. There is one sound change behind most of this, and it is called lenition. Between 2 vowels, a consonant gets lazy. It is a little easier to voice it than to hold it clean, and over enough generations, easier wins. Watch the same Latin word land in 3 places. Latin, vitam. Italian barely moved. Vita. Spanish took 1 step and voiced the T into a D. Vida. French took the step and then kept going, and the consonant wore through to nothing at all. V. Same rule, 3 depths. Italian stopped, Spanish went 1, French went all the way. The dating is argued over, but the first round of weakening looks finished in Gaul by around the 6th century, and the rest of it took centuries more. Either way, this is not modern laziness. It is well over 1,000 years old. You can watch it eat a word. Latin, maturum, ripe. Spanish voiced the T and got maduro. French dropped it and got mur. Latin, securum. Spanish, seguro. French, sûr. 7 letters down to 3. Part 2. The ending fell off. Latin words almost all ended in a vowel. Spanish kept far more of them, which is why Spanish still sounds like Latin with a Spanish accent, muro, filo, and mano. Spanish did drop some, which is how you get pan, mer, and sol, but French dropped nearly all of them. Every final vowel except a went silent, and then a itself faded to a weak and finally to nothing. So the Latin word murum becomes Spanish, muro, in 2 syllables, and French, mur, in 1. And that 1 deletion explains something learners notice on day 1. French stress lands at the end of the word almost every time. Not because French loves the ending, but because the ending is all that survived. Part 3. The consonants turn into vowels. Take a vowel with an M or an N after it. In French, the vowel started borrowing the nasality, and once it had it, the consonant itself was no longer needed. So it went. Latin, bonum. Spanish, bueno, with a clean in you can hear. French, bon, where there is no N left to hear. Only a vowel pushed through the nose. Latin, vinum. Spanish, vino. French, vin. And this is the trait the whole language made. Spanish has 5 vowels, the same 5 it has had for a very long time. French has around 16. The consonants did not disappear. They dissolved into the vowels. Part 4, which brings us back to August. Here is the full chain, and it is a horror film. Classical Latin, augustus. Spoken Latin simplified it to augustus. Old French in the 12th century is already writing aoust and oust. Middle French keeps the S in writing after it has stopped saying it. And modern French writes août, where that little roof on the U is a headstone. It marks a letter that is buried underneath. That is what the circumflex mostly is, a dead S. The old word forest lost its S and became forêt. The old word hostel became hotel. The old word coste became cot. And here's the part I love. English borrowed those words before the funeral: forest, hostel, and coast. Modern English is carrying around a photograph of French from before it deleted anything. Meanwhile, Spanish, from the same Latin, just kept saying agosto the whole time. Part 5. Except they never actually left. The linguists call those latent consonants, and the standard description is that they are the ghosts of word final sounds that were lost everywhere except in front of a vowel. French did not delete them. French made them conditional. So the spelling is not a fossil that nobody bothered to update. Those letters are still on active duty. They are waiting for the right next word. The reason French keeps writing them is that roughly once a sentence, it needs them. Part 6. And some of them are forgeries. Not every silent letter is a ghost. Some were never alive. Take the French word for weight, poids. It comes from the Latin pensum, which gave Old French poids, no D anywhere. Then scholars decided it must be related to the Latin pondus, which does have a D, and they wrote one in. They were wrong. The letter is still there. The word for finger, doigt, came through as doigt. Somebody put the G back to make the Latin digitum visible again. The word temps used to be written tens. The word vingt used to be vingt. The P and the G are Renaissance decoration. So French spelling is two things stacked. Real history that still does real work, and a layer of showing off in Latin added by people who wanted the page to look classical. And now school children memorize both. Part 7. So which one is actually harder? Everybody says French pronunciation is unpredictable. The research points the other way, and it is very specific about the direction. In 1996, Ziegler, Jacobs, and Stone ran the whole French lexicon through a statistical analysis. What they found is that French is relatively consistent going from spelling to sound, and highly inconsistent going the other way from sound to spelling. Read that again. As a learner, given the written word, French will usually tell you how to say it. Given the spoken word, French will not tell you how to write it. The famous difficulty is real, but it lives in dictation, not in reading aloud. And the two languages really are not equal. In 2003, Seymour, Aro, and Erskine tested foundation reading across 13 European writing systems. Children reading Spanish are accurate and fluent inside the first school year. French is named as one of the exceptions that takes longer. So Spanish is genuinely easier on the page, and French is genuinely harder, but harder in one direction more than the other. Part 8. What to do with this? If you are learning Spanish, the deal is simple. What you see is what you say, and what you hear is what you write. Spend nothing on spelling, spend everything on speed and on grammar. If you are learning French, 3 things follow. Treat the end of a word as silent by default, and let liaison be the exception you learn separately. Stop trying to hear the letters because the letters are describing history, not sound. And split your two skills apart because you will be able to read French long before you can spell it, and a bad dictation score is not a bad level. And if you already speak Spanish, you own more French than you think. Take the Spanish word, cut the ending, weaken the middle,
and push it through your nose before an N or an M. Agosto becomes U. Seguro becomes sur. Bueno becomes bon. Vino becomes vin. It will not always land, but it lands often enough to be worth the 2 seconds. Homework. Take 10 Spanish words you already know that end in O or A. Write down what you think French did to each one, then look them up. You will get more of them right than you expect, and the ones you get wrong will teach you the exceptions faster than a list ever could. Next time, why the words you already know are the ones you are pronouncing wrong.